Welcome back, everyone, to Chasing History, the Underground Road Trip. In this particular series, we visit stops that were part of the legendary Underground Railroad. And in this particular road trip, we visited the Hampton Plantation, located in McClellan, South Carolina. Enjoy the road trip. The Hampton Plantation Historical Site is located off of Rutledge Road, McClellanville, South Carolina. It's about 1 hour drive outside of Charleston. I made the trip down in June as part of my Underground Road Trip, a quest to learn and educate on the sites that were a part of the legendary Underground Railroad. The plantation is about 300 acres of land off of the Wamba Creek. It is estimated that around 314 slaves were enslaved here, laboring for its primary crop of rice. The history of slavery spans centuries and continents. As a historian whose work is rooted in public health, I wanted to connect to the Underground Railroad, a historical network of people helping those enslaved to find freedom. It is important to me, as I continue this work, to give my presence to those who have paved the way. So here I am at the Hampton Plantation, a stop on the legendary Underground Railroad. Upon arrival to the park, I experienced a wealth of information about the plantation grounds. As all plantations were worked by slave labor, the education at the site gives an extensive overview about the production of rice by those enslaved and where they lived. So to take all of this in, I walked the sacred grounds. A walk around the enslaved community trail highlights where those enslaved lived and where they worked. Every day, the grueling grind of planting and harvesting rice took place right here, unfortunately exposing them to all types of disease. Slavery health problems are associated with that of poverty, which is the leading cause of health disparities and a primary contribute to death in the United States. Jonathan Mason in 1804 said, "The rice fields on the side and in the rear form an extensive flat as far as the eye can reach." One of the only remaining structures is the chimney, which was part of the home owned by descendants of Prince and Sue Alston, descendants who still live not far from the plantation. Sue Alston was the daughter of freed slaves. Her son, Will, lived here after the cabin was removed. Will worked for the South Carolina State Park Service, sharing his story. The chimney is a visible link to the Alston family house. In 1791, George Washington visited the Hampton house during his southern tour. While visiting, the president was asked whether a certain oak tree should be cut down to create a better view from the porch. His reply was that he liked the tree, so the tree remained. It was then known as the Washington oak. The Washington oak holds the original servant bell that was used to summon the slaves for chores and activities. The Hampton home was built in the 1730s. Daniel Horry inherited the plantation and the slaves from his father around 1762. It became his home with his wife Judith, who died in 1765. Experiences from the war left the home destroyed, and Daniel remarried in 1768 to Eliza Lucas Pickney. He died in 1785 of suspected liver failure. The plantation was left to his son, who lived in Europe. He rebuilt the plantation home after an English-style home called the Hampton. Thus, the current name, the Hampton Plantation. The kitchen house was built sometime in the 1800s, built away from the house for fear of fire, and it housed the sleeping quarters for those who prepared the meals. This was Daphne's house. It was written by Eliza Lucas Pickney. Daphne works and makes me a loaf of very nice bread, and I intend that she shall take her turn sometime and may not forget what she learnt at Santee. At the back of the Hampton home is a path that leads to a garden planted by Archibald Rutledge in the 1930s. It also holds 2 burial plots of the Archibald family. As I look through the front window, I am in awe that it once peered at those who worked the land. I am even more awestruck that I can see the Washington oak. With architectural design hand-built by slaves, it has an attic with a basement, constructed with cypress and pine trees. 12 rooms make the home. The whole house is put together using mortise and tenon joints secured with pegs. There is a particular closet at the entrance of the ballroom. It is not clear what it was used for, but suspected as a waiting area for those serving. The ballroom has a beautiful domed ceiling and hardwood floors. Legacy says that doors were painted white on one side and brown on the other, with the brown always facing out. A strategy to keep the slaves in their place. The knobs are original. My mind can't imagine the strength of the hands that have turned them. One of the most amazing discoveries in the home is a poster that lists the names of those enslaved at the Hampton Plantation, and the number beside the name indicates how much they were worth. Little is known about them as individuals, but we know that their lives mattered, and the history here at Hampton Plantation is a reminder of just how much. Sam Hill Cemetery is in the center of the plantation, a 20-acre African-American cemetery still held by the descendants of the slaves. Howard AME is 1.2 miles from Hampton Plantation. It is part of the AME churches established by freed slaves and is still a centerpiece of the community. The Underground Railroad took many forms, some of the lesser-known paths, such as the rivers of South Carolina. Hampton Plantation is a must-visit. The experience was one of a kind, and I am glad that I made the trip. To walk where they have walked, to sit where they have sat. For that, I am grateful.